Well, welcome. Tonight, we're going to look at the world from a conservative approach. We'll start with introductions.
Chris Wilson, school committee member, planning board member, Milford Building Association, or Milford School Building Association member now, and 25-year resident of the town of Milford.
So you're a member of, the wife wants you out of the house club.
My wife loves to read.
Quietly.
And that
Quietly.
certainly does quiet the house
Yeah.
down, so yes.
Ed Bertarelli, longtime Republican activist, was on the state committee. I'm on the town committee, member of the State Housing Authority, Milford Housing Authority, Milford Geriatric Authority, and the library trustee for about on and off for
100
40
years?
years. 40 years.
Well, let's see. Why don't we start with the tariffs and the economy are hot
Oh,
in the
yes.
news.
I think it's great. You know, Trump's, again, I think that's why he was elected. He has a business approach to tariffs. We just saw that he negotiated a pretty good tariff agreement with the EU. You know, we also just saw in the month of June, the actual United States was profitable, and that was because of tariffs, and that's the first time in
What do you mean
forever.
profitable?
So we didn't run in a deficit.
Trade
right?
balance.
Trade balance, right? You know, we did not run in a
Is
deficit.
that the first time in how many decades?
Since 1776, probably.
A long time, a long, long time.
So, yeah.
What do you
It's
think?
great.
What do you think the main factor is?
I think, again, it's just Trump in a business approach. I think that, you know, it's always been what's going to just, you know, how do we get goods here the best we can? And Trump's looking at it more from how do we get goods here as a global economy that's also going to help benefit the U.S. economy, you know, and work with the, you know, the U.S. buyer.
Yeah. I mean, the internationalist, I mean, the Republican Party before Trump had always been more free trade, internationalist view, because their view was in the Bush era, even the Reagan era, the more trade, the greater prosperity would be, because they had counted on some countries also exercising free trade as well, but a lot of countries didn't choose to do that because they thought a lot of the things would be endangered by United States, American goods, so they imposed tariffs. I noticed when Trump first started to talk about tariffs, the media, which of course what I would associate as basically the mainstream and the liberal media, who never supported him, instantly started to talk about, well, that means prices are going up in the United States. Well, not necessarily, but they focused on that as an issue to get to people, and the Democrats did as well, who basically, you know, the media imitates a lot, in my view, imitates a lot of the talking points of the Democrats. But the fact that Trump could deal with Europe, which is that's the behemoth of economies, the European Union, the common market, whatever you want to call it. I guess would call it the European Union now, which includes a lot of Eastern Europe as well, is a mega.
27 countries.
Yeah, but even the economic powerhouse is just amazing in there. I mean, when you compare it to what Russia is, Russia's nothing as opposed to what the power that Europe has. I remember years ago we were talking about that Russia's, I believe, was that gross national product was lower than California, Texas, and New York. That it was largely dependent on energy, but that the stuff had been so corrupted down and so inefficient that except if, you know, Putin and his friends rely on energy exports to finance all their activities. But that's a note. But I think again it's a solid win for Trump. His trip to Scotland, obviously, and where he invited all the leaders of Europe to come to his golf course and then hold meetings
Yeah,
and so
that's
on.
a subject we'll take up later.
Yeah. I did have to bring that up. So anyway.
But you know, some of it though, the tariffs seem to be opening up discussions of fairness.
Exactly.
I get a kick out of the fact that I'm not allowed to ship a computer to China.
Right. You mentioned that, yes.
Yeah.
I feel like saying, well, wait a minute, I guess you're smarter than us, so we'll use your rules. You're not allowed to ship any computers made in China
Oh, yeah.
to America.
Right.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, China's always going to be the hardest one to negotiate with when it comes to tariffs. I think that, you know, when you look at Trump's ability to negotiate with the EU, just shows that they're willing to work with us. So obviously, China is just a completely different bear of a
Yeah.
a network, right? We we utilize China for so many products, right? When we think about,
Yeah.
you know, how much that we buy, I always used to say, well, we buy off the Walmart shelf. Now
Yeah.
it's, what do we get on Amazon, right?
Yeah.
And how much of those products are coming over
Sure.
from China, right? So again, when you look at it from the business standpoint, how do we look at China with less dependency and try to stimulate some
Yeah.
of our own economy and our own
Yeah.
ability to create factories and build high-tech products?
Now, are we ready for the repercussions? Like, we talk about rare earth metals, rare earth minerals, and China has a vast monopoly.
Well,
But on the other hand, we're finding parts of the United States have a lot of these minerals.
they aren't as rare as we thought.
But the problem is, if you looked at the mines,
Right.
they're huge holes.
It's a big funnel of a hole too.
Yeah.
Right, and it's just, they go deeper and deeper and deeper, right?
So you sit there and say, we want to wean ourselves off Chinese dependency.
Yeah.
But do we want these environmental disasters
Well,
facing us?
But that was one of the pressures of, you know, the electric car people. And it's becoming clearer and clearer that obviously our energy grid isn't up to that, because obviously they're charging more for the limited output we have, because they say we don't have enough power, yet they wanted to push people toward it. But I think back to the Chinese have always had the philosophy they'll outweigh us, outweigh us, excuse me.
Outweight,
Outweight, yes,
W-A-I-T.
outweigh us, because our regimes come and go. We're
Well,
fickle,
we
we're fickle.
change leadership every
Yeah.
4 years.
Our-
or 8
and
years.
our attention span is limited, where theirs is a more long-range approach. But I think their own economy is hurting deeply, because I guess we've heard is a deeply corrupt regime. A lot of homes and properties over there were built on speculation. Plus, we don't really know the amount of money that the leadership is hoarding for themselves. But, I mean, this gentleman who's head of China now, I mean, I don't think you retire to a country home in the Chinese countryside and those sort of leaderships.
Well,
You're ushered out in
If you
another
look
way.
back in the whole when communism was in its peak,
Yep.
people stayed in power, stayed in the political office till they were 80,
Yep.
90 years old. And the reason was simple. As part of communism, you didn't own anything.
Yep.
So the dasha in the country home, all the benefits came with your office. The minute you retired, that went to the next guy.
Right.
Although,
So-
although with Putin, that isn't the case.
Well, no,
But
now it's
now it's
totally
more
different.
gangster style or
Yeah,
whatever.
I think we've always looked at China as like that, are they the next global leader?
Yeah.
Yet
And-
they've yet to ever establish that,
No.
right? And that's been
No.
for 20 years, and it points back to
Well,
communism and how communism will
Again,
cycle. And
I
they-
remember when I was going to Moscow every other week, some of the sayings that came up where they said, they pretend to pay us, we pretend to work.
Yep.
Right.
Well,
And-
what was the stimulus there to work?
Well, I mean,
yeah.
communism in theory works wonderful if you're a computer.
Oh.
An older computer eats more energy, puts out less calculations.
But it,
But the minute you put the human factor in, it says, why should I bust my tail if I'm going to get the exact same thing as you sitting there doing nothing?
But again, also, they are within that system. Communism was a phony from the beginning, because the elites were still whether they were the military elite or the intelligence elite or the diplomatic elite, and they had they have had no regard for Russian citizenry. I mean, when dealings with Russia, how rude they were to their own people who
Well,
were not of a
Ed,
similar
The
situation.
famous saying, in communism, we are all equal.
Yeah.
Some of us are a little more equal than others.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know-
I think we look at China right now, though, as a manufacturer, right?
Yes.
But they're certainly coming along, and I know we didn't talk about this pre-shows, but more from an AI standpoint and just what the dangers are there.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we know that they are definitely gearing up their infrastructure, and we
Yeah.
see more and more their ability to create AI, and just that's a whole other conversation.
Then what do you
But the danger
attribute
of it.
a socialist mayor possible in New York?
Well, let's go back to the AI for a minute. Their AI is idea is an aggressive form. I mean, you look at the way they regard their neighbors, their immediate neighbors. there to be victimized by the Chinese. The Japanese understand that, the Vietnamese certainly do, the Filipinos, all their neighbors understand that. So, I mean, I think whatever they've done, and as we know, they've got whole sections of the military that are designed and deal with hacking other countries. And they have whole military units that hack people, which is certainly in another form of aggressive. But to go back to your New York socialist mayor, that's a treat, huh?
Well, I mean, when I heard him talk about taking over the stores, it brought back memories of, we're in Moscow, there are stores that have the windows blanked out, papered over.
Yes.
They were called Beryuskas. You could get everything you wanted in there.
But they had to be blanked out because they didn't want
Well,
people
the
to.
problem was you had to pay in hard currency,
Yes.
dollars,
Not
marks.
Russians, though. Not Russian
Russians, it
rubles.
was against the law for them to own hard currency.
So you had to pay in
So
American,
they
German,
couldn't
French.
get in.
Yeah.
We could go
Unbelievable.
there,
Unbelievable, huh?
and I mean, we
get the
used
hard
to have dinners at the labs when we worked with scientists, and you didn't want to be rude. So I'd go and say, look, we'll have a dinner, but could you help me? Because I don't know how to buy fresh vegetables.
Yeah.
I don't know how to buy
Yeah.
this and that, which the regular Russian
Didn't have.
could buy, because
Yeah.
they could spend rubles on it.
Okay.
And I would go in the Beryuska, and if I needed 2 hams, I'd buy 4. And that way, at the end of the dinner,
Yeah, there you go.
well, we got it extra. I can't take it back to the hotel. Would you dispose of it for me?
Right.
And
Imagine
it was
Yeah,
embarrassing,
but hey, yeah.
because these
Yeah,
were
that-
hardworking
Right,
scientists.
but it just shows, I think
Yeah.
that, to me, it shows why capitalism, which we have in the United States, is, to me, the best form of
Yeah.
government,
Well,
right?
Well, pick one socialist nation. Venezuela,
Right,
I mean, you sit there and say, here's a country with, I believe, the biggest oil reserves.
It used to be a massive oil producer, yes.
Yep.
But they have the biggest oil reserves
Yeah.
in the world.
But they've screwed it up. Yep.
And they took it to a point where they can't feed their people.
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Well, the interesting one about this guy who ran from, obviously, the New York media are the media, like L.A. and whatever. So he runs, and he's got Cuomo against him, and of course Cuomo's vote totals were high in the black and Puerto Rican precincts in the city. So you can't say minority vote, but his section of his group of the black vote and the Puerto Rican vote was very high. This gentleman, who I don't remember his name, won among the white yuppies. The rich whites seemed to go more with Cuomo or whatever, but there were enough of the other people to do it. And he calls, well, he hasn't gone to the length of Jesse Jackson, but he's implied that white people are colonists in New York. In the white neighborhoods in New York should be taxed more because of the fact that the white population is great. But the interesting thing was, Victor Hansen, the political columnist, political opinion guy from California, pointed out that this gentleman's parents were Indian, and they were colonists in Uganda, who were bankers and traders. So, so then they moved here, and I guess the mother's worth over 10 million because she's a film director.
I was
So-
going to say, this is the man who grew up in a poor family of only millions and millions of dollars net worth.
Exactly, yeah. It's amazing that socialist ideology, right, and just how everybody needs to be at that same level.
But it's the Bernie Sanders philosophy in a
Right.
way.
Yeah,
It's the Bernie
just-
Sanders philosophy. And obviously his other thing was basically disable the police functions in the city.
No,
Right,
he
yeah.
didn't say disabled. He said defund the
Defund,
police.
right.
Take the money out of the police.
Okay,
Could you
well,
And
imagine
isn't
put
that,
that
it
in New York
towards
City?
well,
social
wasn't that
workers.
disabling? And if they have no money, who's going to
Yes,
work for nothing?
exactly, yeah.
Imagine a policeman there being crazy enough to still work on the New York police force with him as the mayor.
Right, exactly. It'd be chaos,
Ah.
absolute chaos. Like,
Well,
you know,
there's-
New York is just that, right? New York is kind of controlled chaos when you're there, right? You go because of the busyness of everything and,
Yeah, I
and the
just
lights
can't
and the
believe it.
rights, but I mean,
Yeah.
it also needs to stay within a box when it comes
Wall
to
Street,
law
Wall
and
Street
order.
will move to Jersey so fast that it'll be ex-Wall Street
Yeah.
or whatever.
Actually, I don't agree, because I think the system will fall apart quicker than they can move.
If you saw the New York City Council now and the people they've elected, if they did a mug shot of them, you'd be truly scared. That it's like the Boston City Council. When you see this cast of characters they have, it's like.
Yeah, but isn't it the same thing as the sanctuary city? When the mayor of New York said, "We're proud to be a sanctuary city. Send us
Yeah.
your immigrants."
But
And
what
then all
happened?
of
It
a
didn't
sudden
work
it was
out,
like,
didn't it?
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute, we need the government, we need the federal government to pay for all this.
Right, exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
New York's population, interestingly, topped 8 million in the last census. Now, I remember when I lived there and before, it was between 6 and 7, and then a tad above 7. But in that possible, whether it's, I'm not gonna say legal or illegal immigration, but New York is a magnet for people from all over the world. So, I mean, you go to Brooklyn and you see, I don't know how many nationalities live in Brooklyn. I mean, there's got to be dozens in all different neighborhoods. So something's attracted people. I think part of it's the work, that people can work, and, you know, it's just amazing that it's going on. But part of the other thing about the immigration thing is, we do have a crisis in the country about people filling jobs. So how do you answer that in a way? Part of it, we could talk about how the schools need to get back into vocational ed so that a degree is more applicable to people, but you have, as Trump said, we don't have people who can work in shipyards. We don't have people who can, plumbers or electricians, to build our ships. So it's a scary thing. We're in a situation where the native birth rate among all the different groups in the country of the citizens is declining. The birth rate's declining, and as you know, there are a lot of jobs going to wanton out there.
But you know, I think about the need for immigrants. Now, first of all, unless your name is Squanto, you were an immigrant, somewhere back in your family.
Yeah.
You know, unless you were Elizabeth Warren or whatever, you were
Well, I mean,
not a Native American.
my four grandparents are immigrants from Ireland and Italy. Yours, the same. I don't know if yours are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
From
So-
Canada and Europe.
Yeah, so that's it.
So you sit there and say, the issue I have is that Congress hasn't made the rules tight enough to say, here's the legal way.
Of course.
And instead of saying we're gonna let 100,000, because if you think about it, the Portuguese started in southeast Massachusetts. Toronto has the next biggest population. Why? Because when the European visas ran out, they went to Canada.
Okay.
But if we put together a program, you know, my grandfather came to Milford in '39 for one reason, to make money to send back and take care of his 3 daughters and wife.
No question.
Exactly. Yeah.
So people like that, I want to encourage hardworking, tax-paying
But-
residents.
But remember, Kennedy's bill, Ted Kennedy, whose, again, grandparents were from Ireland, I mean, he put a bill in that literally neutered European immigration to this country and encouraged Asia and South America. That was his immigration bill that put quotas on the Italians, the Portuguese, and whatever. You mentioned it's interesting because Portugal's, I believe, got 7 or 8 million people, okay, as a country. So it's smallish size. You look at Brazil, it's got 200, almost 50 million people. But just think how many Portuguese people live, who were from there, live in other countries all over the world. I bet you probably got as many people live abroad
As
as live
in the
in
country.
Portugal, yeah. Like that's the way with a lot of countries. I'm sure
But
that's
you
where
see,
you
again,
yeah.
to me, it's a two-edged sword. I want to make it easier for respectable people who come here,
Yeah.
put their heads down, work, pay taxes, make it easier for them to be in this country. But on the other hand, the people who come in, drug dealers, whatever,
Right. But
throw them out.
when was the last time you heard anybody running for office or even current Congress right now saying, hey, let's change the rules of the game, right? They hate the game, and they hate the game that Trump's playing by those rules of deportation. But all you have to do is change the rules of the game and assist the immigration process,
Yeah.
right? When was the last time that was even touched? And I know the Democrats say they touched it
No.
with Biden, but then that also talked
Well, wait a
about
minute.
border
They
security,
abolished it.
right?
They abolished
Right,
the rules,
exactly.
basically.
So
During the
yeah,
Biden administration, we let in 10 million
exactly.
It's hard to believe. It's
undocumented,
hard to believe.
illegal,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
you want to
yeah,
call them.
Yeah. Yeah, that came up
And-
and, yeah.
I think I'm right when I say I heard last month there was 0 coming across the
Zero.
border.
Amazing.
Yeah,
So the idea that you can't stop illegal immigration is a fallacy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Rubio there, Marco, when he was a senator, asked a very pro-immigrant group, well, what do you make of the 15 million people who came across the border? His answer was, only 10 point something million came across in those years. And everyone, the thing is like, he admitted to 10 point something million. So you can see but again, I think that was part of their goal, is to overwhelm the whatever. And as we pointed out, there's a gentleman from Milford, no name, but he's a supervisor at Border Patrol. And some friends, people we know, have gone to visit because he grew up in Milford. In fact, he lived in the Oliver Street School years ago when he was younger. And he's got many friends. And he's a supervisor. And he said, I'm the only, during Biden, I was basically the only person out at the border. All my people who work for me are pushing paperwork to push people through the system and give them a court date, which they're never going to make, because that was like, we're going to give you a court date and you better show up. Well, your lawyer, immigrant lawyer, is going to tell you don't even bother because it's so out of control. So that's happened in that time, and now that Trump is trying to weed out the bad apples in this, the media is only portraying the horror stories of what's going on. In reality, we see the bad apples that were taken out, career criminals, criminal gangs, and I mean.
But realistically,
Yeah.
there's 1% of bad people
Maybe,
that
yeah, but that's
became immigrants,
well, maybe
that were illegal
maybe,
immigrants.
Maybe it's 1, maybe it's 5, whatever.
But
it is,
whatever
it's
the
still a small
percentage is,
number.
It's no worse than the 1% bad people that are residents.
No,
So,
but that
I guess
isn't
I would-
isn't the thing though. But when you come from a country that's oppressive, or in a country where you have held down, to a country where anything goes. I mean, just imagine a person coming from a drug-plagued country in South America or whatever, and come up to the United States and go, there's basically no rules. I mean, when you think about it, given the controls in other countries, and the opportunity is, if you do things right, you can work multiple jobs because there's so much work out there. It's crazy, and that's a valid point. I mean, we saw that in the situation that happened in Milford, with the raids in Milford, and I understand, but that ICE has been in Milford frequently, and I understand from some police sources that some real bad apples have been picked up, real bad apples.
Well, they picked up one guy that
Yeah.
apparently was convicted in Brazil. He was a gun runner, a drug trafficker, and a child, whatever they call him, trafficker.
Oh.
And he was setting up shop in Milford.
Right.
Why would I have any sympathy towards him?
And you can bet he was preying on his own community in Milford.
Well, that's
that's
the
the thing.
fallacy, is that these people prey on the residents. No, they prey on their community first.
They have to, because
Right, they're the ones that are being the mules, right, that are helping the process
and they're
taking
intimidated.
money
Yeah.
for that, right? And we're hearing more and more
Yeah.
of those stories. We know that has been going on all through the Biden administration. We're just hearing about it more now because immigration has the resources to start cracking down on
Yeah.
these types of individuals.
Yep.
And unfortunately, right, like Ton Holman had said, and I truly believe that based on any mayor or individuals that are saying, hey, we're a sanctuary city, it just put a target on those cities. And, Ton Holman said, listen, yeah, we're going to come for the bad guys, but unfortunately there are going to be collateral damage. And we
Yep.
are seeing that. And unfortunately, that is, again, part of the process. But I would also say that when you are in this country without documentation, you are illegal, right? You
Well, that's-
made the choice, or you made the choice to stay
That's the
after
question
your
that
visa.
comes up,
Well,
is when they say they picked up innocent people.
Right,
Is it really innocent, or is it
well, from
innocent?
from their
innocent
point of
if-
view, from the people that are decrying this, there should be no controls. They say there should be, but they don't want them because it plays into the game they want, which is literally to have, as I said before, districts in parts of the state, in parts of each state where populated with a heavy thing of non-citizen residents. And it's political power for them because the mayor of Los Angeles, the mayor of New York, or whatever can say, look at how many residents we have.
Well, how many residents are there in Milford?
Well, it's hard to say. The census said about around 30-ish.
Yeah, 29 and change.
Well,
But we
yeah,
know that there's 33 total in this area. We get counted for our congressional district on the bigger number.
In our legislative district, too. Yep. But that's the point, to encourage it. But question is, should that be the case? I don't believe it should. Citizens should be counted because, but when you allow 10 million or more to come in, that throws everything off because now you've got catch me if you can, find me if you can.
Right.
And that's I think the whole thing that's there. But again, imagine if Harris had got elected, nothing would have changed. And the input, I mean, obviously, some people were on their way to the border when Trump got elected. So obviously, a lot of people just turned right around and left.
Yeah.
But just imagine Mexico made a fortune off it because they were helping.
Right, exactly.
Helping
Back
people
to the
go through.
mules
And
helping.
curiously, if you came from Guatemala or Honduras or Panama and went to Mexico, you were basically told, don't stay here. So it was all right to cross the country to
Well,
come
that
up
was
here.
always the question that
Yeah.
says, if I'm in Mexico
Yep.
and I'm claiming I need asylum because I'm coming from a dangerous place,
Yeah.
is that legit? You're already in a safe country,
But they didn't want you.
but they didn't want you.
No.
Right. Again, it's just.
It's a game. It's a game.
Again, you can't hate the game if you don't like the rules, right? Or change the
Yeah.
rules if you don't like the game. So simply, we just have not seen
Well,
that.
how's
from
it
the Democrat
affected
side. So,
Milford?
in regards to the current
Well,
immigration policy
we
with the
went
Trump
through
administration,
40 years
Yeah.
where we were adding one child
Okay.
a
but
year.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, when the peak of the immigration hit, we were adding 200 plus. I mean, that's a memorial school a
Right.
year.
Yep.
But the
Yeah,
wor-
we know our school population increased due to the influx of
Yeah.
immigration, whether it was legal or illegal, right? We know that's part of it. We know that we have far more English language learners in our school system. And from my point, and I always say this, as a school committee member, the Supreme Court says we educate, so I've always supported that. But I also have said it comes at a price, right? So
Yeah.
we have to have more staff. So again, if your policy at the government level, at the United States level, federal level, is going to allow for the influx, then be prepared to pay more on your taxes to help support.
Yeah.
But
But
do you think the pendulum swung? I remember.
it's too soon to say, though. Too
Well, I
soon.
remember hearing that the immigrants that were put in the Best Western could choose school choice.
Okay, but again, yeah.
And they could
Yeah.
choose not to go to Milford schools, but to go to towns around us. And that Milford town had to pay for the transportation.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
Is that real?
It's just-
Yeah, but that's a small. Those are newsworthy things. But the Best Western was a flashpoint because there they are. The real fact is, all around the town, there were people living 4, 5, 6 families in an apartment and paying rent to a slumlord who's basically charging an outrageous rent. And those are the ones that weren't even. But it didn't look at the Milford residents because we don't have any media anymore. We don't really have a local paper. Radio station covers some stuff. We have the Milford Patch, but again, nothing like we used to have with MRC and whatever.
But doesn't it seem odd that the Wilson family wants to send their child outside of Milford? You have to pay for
pay.
transportation.
Right. Yeah, we've seen transportation costs, since, triple over the last few years
Yeah.
because, and that is one of the factors,
Yeah.
right? There
Yeah.
are other factors,
But-
as far as from the special education side that are driving factors of costs going up.
Yep.
But certainly the migrant population has
Yeah.
driven
Yeah.
up costs. Again, it
But
goes
why
back
should I
to-
feel good that a visitor has more rights than I do?
Well, you shouldn't,
Right.
but that's the point. But
Right. You're-
if you feel that way, you should feel guilty because it's bad for you to say that because you're a racist.
Right.
That's the dictum that's out there. The other thing is too, obviously the migration thing has affected a lot of different towns differently. But one of the ways today, it's so much easier. When your father was here, they corresponded with your mother and the family this way. Now we have these. So with the advent of the phone, it's no accident that whole family groupings got across the border and came to Milford or came to Fall River or came to whatever, because they're going where you know people, because the family support things. If there's a church, some sort of group that's going to help you, you go there. So they didn't come to Milford. The original people came, just like back when we had the Irish immigration, okay? Then we had the Italian immigration. We had at least 4,000 or 5,000 people back in Milford who were Italian back in the day when Milford had probably 8 or 9. But they got the word out, come to
Well,
Milford.
if you think about it,
So,
originally,
yeah.
Fall Rive, New Bedford,
Yeah.
Gloucester attracted a lot of Portuguese because of the whaling
Of
industry.
course, yes.
And then after they did one whaling tour, they got off the boat and said, no.
Go back out, yeah.
Well, people like my grandfather had nothing to do with fishing.
Yep.
But when he came to America, he heard about this town called Milford, which had a Portuguese population.
But that's how
so
he-
he could
yeah.
assimilate.
And from probably the same area of Portugal to come over, yep,
But the thing was, you had shoe factories.
yes.
And that was the joke that still, I mean, to the old Portuguese from Milford, if you want to insult somebody, call them a shoemaker.
Oh, well.
Because the key was you would say, you're insulting them by saying, well, if you can't do anything worthwhile, you can make shoes.
Oh,
But, you sit there and say, we got a lot of immigrants here because of a driving force of labor requirements.
and
In
yes,
Milford today, I believe, one of the big reasons we get a large population increase is the affordable housing.
It's more housing than anything.
well, this is
Exactly.
affordable,
Yeah,
but,
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
affordable is
yeah.
a,
Multifamily housing.
exactly. Yeah.
When, there's a book, it's at the library, of Leather and Stone. And the man did a lot of research. I forgot the author at the Milford Library. And he talks about the two driving forces, the shoe industry and the granite industry. And one is, it's written in the eyes of an Irish immigrant who worked in a shoe factory and an Italian who worked in a granite quarry. And it talks about the what do you call it, but literally, Milford also had an incredible, this is now before right during the Irish immigration, incredible cigar industry. There were literally dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens, I think it's over 200, cigar making, quote, factories, which meant a barn or a garage or what, people were making cigars, and Milford was known in the.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was one of the first things that happened. And also, the shoe industry the boot industry had started because of the Civil War. So in Braggville, the Bragg family had boot factories. So that was, again, the Plains originally was an Irish neighborhood. They worked in the shoe factories. So,
Well, you had Bickford shoe, Porter
no, but this
shoe, Milford shoe.
this is before them that laid all the groundwork for all this stuff. The old factories, a lot of which burned because of the process they used for tanning. But it just shows you it was literally an industrial hub. Forget about Drapers, but it was an industrial hub on its own. And obviously you had a lot of people coming to town to work. So,
But I think that circles back to the fact
Yeah.
that you had those industries to help feed that population, right?
Yeah.
And you needed the workers. Right now, we're not really seeing that as much, right? And I think that as the voter, and the Trump supporter that's out there, just heard that we have waves of individuals coming in and they're jumping in off of government subsidies.
yes, of course they
What was it, some sort of Act 806 or, where if you were going to come to this country, you had to have someone available to help support you
Yeah, well, not
financially,
anymore,
right? That's become the U.S. government.
Yeah.
And I think that
Well,
more
I mean,
people
I
have
grew
heard
up
that and
having families living in my
Yeah,
house
right.
almost perpetually.
exactly.
Because my father could never say no.
Yeah,
Right.
but they
You
were
know,
there,
and he'd
he
look
was
at
their
me and
leg
say,
up to people.
I'm not doing anything that somebody didn't do for us.
But there was no, right now, there's a lot of people who make money, quote, helping these people in the
Yeah.
government systems. And
Yeah.
whether they're really helping them or helping themselves is an issue, because we have all these paid advocates, we have everyone else who's being
Right.
funded by us, for what? So, I mean, when you get to that stage, you realize, I think we've said this before, that Milford isn't alone in this problem, needless to say. with 10 million people in the country. We're not alone.
Well, let's look at just the state alone, and we've spent, what, $1 billion in this
What
last
she
fiscal
what she
year?
admits, yes.
Which is admitted,
Yeah.
right? So where else could we have put $1 billion as far as in any other
Yeah.
categories of need?
Yeah, give
right?
relief to gas and electric
Well,
users and whatever, yeah.
well,
We
yeah,
passed
the electric
that
alone.
millionaires excise tax,
Right.
because that was gonna go only to schools and
Yeah.
only to roads.
Sure, okay.
Did I understand that almost all of it went to schools and roads?
No,
That it's starting to fund other
that's
projects?
the
sure it
MBTA
is,
and
right.
whatever, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
how about the
Well,
bottle bill? Way back, it was supposed to be guaranteed that the bottle bill money would only do that. Then the legislature raided it because it was a very popular thing, 25 million here, 50 million
Well,
there.
it's- yeah, Mass Pike tolls would only go
Mass
to Mass
Pike
Pike.
tolls are only gonna be put in place to pay back the Mass
Temporarily,
Pike.
yeah.
Yeah,
Temporarily,
temporarily
yes,
too,
yes.
so, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same dialogue
yeah.
that you get, I think that
And what they did there was interesting. They transferred, they did a game,
To the Department of Transportation?
yeah, they transferred the Mass Pike debt to the Department of Transportation and also the big dig cost over there because they had a, and now, but what the problem there was, once you got rid of the tolls, the feds then wouldn't help maintain the highway. So now the state had to do it, and you could see the job they do. Yeah.
And I think the Healy administration keeps saying, well, we're trying to prevent people from moving out of the state. We're seeing this great migration out. So if I'm going to move into Massachusetts and I read in the Boston Globe that $1 billion of tax money was spent on the migrant community, why am I gonna move to the state?
No.
Right? You wanna know that it's being used for roads and bridges and especially schools, especially if I'm,
Yeah.
schools
Yeah.
especially, but $1 billion, think about what $1 billion could have done
Yeah.
to our school
Yeah.
systems
Yeah,
throughout
they
the
showed
state.
the
Well, what
last,
do you
Which are
think-
already very
What do you
good.
think the real sentiment is about ICE and deportation?
well,
I mean, hold on,
Yeah.
Trump ran, one of his planks
yeah,
was that he was going to deport criminals.
if he could find them, yep.
right,
Well,
yeah.
but he seems to find a lot of
Yeah,
them.
you find
Well,
them.
okay.
Still,
I guess there are a lot of them then, huh?
yeah.
Well,
What do you think the real,
the numbers guy on CNN, the guy is I forgot his now, is it Harry? The nerdy guy who does all the numbers on CNN.
my God, you watch CNN?
Well, I watched this when I hear
You
him.
gotta find out what Trump's doing
no,
wrong.
No, but he's on, and I'm surprised he hasn't been removed yet, because the CNN commentators are like, and he goes, here's, according to these 4 polls, the public sentiment on deporting all illegals, all, he said. And the woman goes, did you say all? He said, yes, I said all. And they go down, and was 40-something here, something here, something. The dramatic increase across has been incredible.
Right.
And this is from Pew polls, all the different polls, all the way down. And he's trying to show the CNN audience that you may not think this is correct, but there's a number of people out there who believe all illegals should be,
It was like 20% of
Well-
the citizens thought if
Well-
you're illegal, you should be gone.
Well, it's a majority now, so that's the point. It's not 20% anymore, trust me. One had 57%. And a lot of that is in the immigrant community who have done their work. You see that, just as a little aside, but in Nevada had been reliably a Democratic state because Harry Reid had a machine there of the hotel workers and the casinos and whatever, a lot of them. So, well, they quickly figured out the casinos were trying to move in illegals to cut the pay.
Yeah.
And the union's going, well, whatever, and so you saw this the last election, it shifted dramatically over toward Trump, which shows you that,
Well, that was,
Yeah.
that was the right conservative claim that Biden was opening the gates to turn Texas blue.
well, how'd that
That-
work out, yeah.
Well, but
Yeah.
that was one of the theories,
yeah.
is that immigrants come in, they're all gonna vote Democratic, so even if they can't vote, their children will be able to vote.
That's possible, yeah.
But how did that work out?
Well, we don't yet. But the scary
hasn't
thing
turned
that
blue.
more to me is Californians are moving to near Austin, Texas, and they haven't figured out the reason they left California yet, and they
Right,
still vote the
exactly.
same way.
Yeah.
Wait a
Oh, yeah.
minute, you left there because of this.
Right.
I mean-
Because they want to raid every ICE facility out there for
I
doing
mean,
their job.
I don't know if you saw in the big beautiful bill, which we didn't talk on too much, but one of the reasons the Northeast Republican congressman was so against it at first was they wanted a $40,000 exclusion for, taxes in it as part of your thing. Now, you figure 40,000 for property taxes, or 40,000 for taxes.
No, that was for all deductions.
No, but this is a 40,000 tax deduction you could do.
Right.
Okay, so that means in parts of New York State, the tax rates, people are paying upwards of $40,000 a year in real estate taxes and other taxes. That's amazing. Amazing.
Well, I think we're spoiled here, especially in
Well-
Milford, because the average house pays $6,500 a year.
And that's a dramatic increase.
Right.
And that seems high to us.
Yeah, but
But look around us, at all the towns around
But
us.
that's a problem with what I call it, saying, Chris is saying about wanting to move to the state. How can you come into a state with a family and then pay a $25,000 tax bill or whatever, and a mortgage and everything else, because you get it on the neck all the time, basically. That's the way it looks like. And
Well,
so,
it's high taxes and then the high utility rates too,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
gotta be,
And the high housing price.
high, well, yeah, high housing price.
I
and all
mean,
that. I mean,
I was dumbfounded when I saw that the mean price of a house in Boston broke $1 million.
oh, of course, sure.
How the heck do you get started?
Some of them are, the three-deckers in South Boston are $750,000 a floor when they condoize them, at least.
But you think about it, these kids are graduating
Right.
with incredible amounts of debt on their back.
Yeah, but
And
let's look at this is where the thing that comes up. We look at the kids who go to college. The problem is we've looked at them for a long time and not looked at the other kids who and the country needs them desperately. At the kids who should go to trade school and all those technicals. We're always looking at this level, and Trump has shown, especially with a lot of the voters who said, "Screw this." I mean, the biggest fiasco was that with the student debt exclusion.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
That it targeted certain groups of people, and it excluded others. So if you were from a square state, good luck, bye. Okay, so
I mean, we told.
how much did he give out in federal debt exclusion?
We told all of our high school kids that were going into
Yeah.
college, like, hey, get in the technology field, be in coding, be in computer science. Well, AI is going to replace those
No.
jobs pretty quick, but AI is not going to replace your electrician, your plumber,
No,
your
and-
HVAC.
and-
And
Well,
I
but I
think,
mean,
you know,
we fell into this
When the sentiment's there.
because when I was a kid at Milford High, before you went to Milford High, you made a choice. If you wanted to go to college, you went to Milford High.
Right.
If you wanted to be in the trades, you went to BVT.
right.
Now, all of a sudden, I've said this for years, people like my father, you put him in an organic chemistry class, he wouldn't do well at all. But give the man a tool.
Yeah, but
And he was an artist.
Right.
But when you have our generation of parents subtly denigrating trades because you don't really want to do that, and everything in society it responds, and you don't have the people you need. I mean,
Yeah,
an
but the
electrician.
problem was, unless you were top 10% of your class, you're not getting into BVT.
Correct, yeah.
No, but that's
I've
the
always
new
said-
BVT. But what they've transformed that too, and that's another problem that we have to address in the high school that we're going to do is they've even taken the vocational schools and put this discriminatory stuff in that the basic plumber, electrician, auto body, this and that, and the other thing, beautician, dental hygienist. Okay, but now we're going to bring all these other things in as well. Well, I understand that, but we don't have the tradesmen to do it. And
But one of the things that
Well-
we're adding on to the request for the new high school is what's called Chapter 74.
Exactly, yeah.
Which basically says, the rules that said, if you have a carpentry program at your vocational school, you can't have it in your high school.
Right.
Are being lifted because you can get a waiver to say, we've got 50 kids who want to go into this program, and BVT can only take 15.
well,
Yeah, without going too far down that road, I think that's going to be an important selling point for the new high school to ensure that we can do those programs and
the degrees.
we tell the
Yeah.
Milford taxpayer why we're doing these programs.
Why would you tell an immigrant family or any family of limited means, we're not going to offer these things? Because why shouldn't I quit school? Because a degree for me is worthless. I need to work.
Right.
And That's the point. And what we don't realize is our grandparents and our parents worked. There was nothing else. You worked or didn't eat. So you quit school. A lot of people quit school to go in the shoe factory. They quit school to go anywhere else. It wasn't what do you call it? But today with this laundry list of all these opportunities, you look back and you go, okay, so what are the schools basically teaching these days? And that's how I think.
Well, that's why
the
a lot
point
of the small liberal arts colleges
are going.
are in trouble.
Right.
I remember
Yep.
once a year, Holy Cross has a night where you meet with upcoming graduates to give perspective. And this one young lady came to me and said, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I said, well, you got 4 months to figure it out.
Right.
I said, what was
Oh,
your
yeah.
major? She said,
Well-
religious studies.
Right.
I said, that's simple. Go to college. Go grad school.
And to
She
get-
said, why? I said, because the only place you're going to make a living is teaching religious studies. And to do that, you got to have a PhD at a university.
Yeah.
But again, if you don't, she said, but I don't want to be a teacher. I said,
Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah.
and today at
Counterfeiter. How about that?
$90,000 a year.
Yeah.
And that was the problem I had with the forgiveness.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, you're not fixing the problem.
You're encouraging it.
You're,
in a way.
you're
Right.
encouraging it because you're making it easier for people.
And again, it became back to that, well, this is the easy street. Well, I don't have to pay for my student loan, so now I can go and do this and I can do that. Well, now all of a sudden, the loans have come due, right? And
Yeah.
so
But again, he
you
was.
better have a job and a lifestyle to be able
that-
to
but that was a-
support your
If you're sitting
payments.
there on $1,000, $2,000 a month payment
Mhm.
for your college loans.
Right.
I mean, when we graduated,
Well,
we
again,
came
Al,
from
but that's,
Yeah.
that's
Well.
years ago. I mean, in relative speaking.
but that's today
Right.
when kids
Yeah.
graduate.
And we know college is ridiculously expensive, right? And every college
There's a
is
reason for
trying
it, too.
to
There's a-
up the other college to get.
We should
kids
know
to
what there's
come
a
in.
reason for
Right.
it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, there is, not every industry out there you need that college degree, right? But in the same token, with a college degree, you're not working outside on a 95-degree day
Right.
here. But in the same token, you're working outside on a 95-degree day in Milford, but doesn't mean that you're not making a pretty good living.
No, and
right?
that's-
You're working hard for it, no
That's the
doubt
point,
about
but
it.
that's
Yeah.
that's when you have a group of our population who doesn't
Right.
feel, my goodness, I might have to work, I might have to work
Right.
hard, I might have to be outside, but the thing is, it's just aggravating because you saw the loan forgiveness and it was a blatant attempt to buy votes. That's what it was.
I would say so,
Blatant
too.
attempt to buy votes. And how did it work out? A lot of people just said, well, wait a minute, I went to a school and I worked my way through.
Right.
And then you're saying to someone now, there was a part of it that said, if you were a teacher or a nurse or whatever, for a certain number of years, you qualified, and I think that was sort of a valid sort of thing.
that was,
But-
they used
That
to
was
do
a limited
even
number of
with
people.
Physicians where
Yeah,
your medical school would be reduced if you agreed to practice medicine in
Mm-hmm.
designated areas for 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was
But-
an
but-
incentive
but
to
very
go to
special,
Arkansas and
yeah,
Idaho.
Indian reservations, very specialized
Yeah,
things.
But
yeah.
to your point of,
Yeah.
the student loan forgiveness and people kind of getting fed up, all right, I'm a auto mechanic, I'm
Yeah.
a plumber, right? I have to buy all my own tools.
Yep. Pay
I
for
don't-
my
I-
licenses.
I don't get reimbursed for all my tools. If I have a truck full of tools as a plumber
yeah.
outside
Yeah.
and, I've got
Yeah.
thousands of dollars worth
Yeah.
of investment
Yeah.
there.
And the thing that
nobody
killed me
paid
was,
back for
again,
that.
you're not putting the pressure on schools
Right.
to squeeze. Because I remember having a discussion with the president of Holy Cross when I got my letter from my daughter. I said, I thought you were well-educated. He goes, well, I think I am. I said, I got a letter from you that went through all these cost-cutting and savings, and you said, because of our efforts, we're only going up 5% this year.
Oh, unbelievable.
And I said, wait a minute, first of all, inflation's 2%.
Again, but,
So you're going up double inflation, and you're proud of that?
well, the hypocrisy there too of these colleges was that when you saw what they paid Liz Warren to teach whatever, and then you saw what they pay a custodian or a janitor from schools that were supposed to be woke as all hell, but the peons in the school, in their minds, get what we pay them. But these other people who are, I guess, in the stratosphere of, in their own view, making $300,000 and $400,000.
I'll support the socialist economy as long as it doesn't affect me,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Well, there was great expression in Italy. Every communist has a maid. That was the great expression, Italy.
No, Margaret
Yeah.
Thatcher said
Yeah.
it best.
Yeah.
Socialism is the best form
Yeah.
of government until you run out of other people's money.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep, yep.
exactly.
And that's what happened in England, too,
Yeah.
yep.
I think talking to Harvard too, quick segue over
Yeah.
is the fact that Trump and Trump and Harvard and Columbia University and Harvard, and how Columbia University is now has to write out some big checks, and now
Yeah.
it sounds like Harvard is on that
Yeah, yeah.
timetable too.
Well,
So
yeah.
I think that Trump has, again, you may not like him because he's so far to the
he
side.
stirs
but he is
things.
stirring the pot, and he
Yeah.
is making people aware of the inequity, right?
Yeah.
And
I
just the
think there's a
wokeness
lot
on these
of people
college
who
communities.
don't like Trump as a person.
Fine,
100%.
what we do.
I'm one of them.
I'm one of them too.
He's a blowhard.
Yeah.
I mean, his worst enemy
Okay,
is his
fine.
own mouth.
Yeah.
Well, but
Right.
that's
But
just,
when you
but-
say, forget that, and
Right.
look at his results versus
Yeah.
his predecessor,
Right.
yeah, I mean,
He's
I can't,
executing the policies that have been put in front of him.
Yeah.
well, he's doing something that most politicians don't. He's living up to his promises.
Oh, yes, he is.
the other
You may
thing-
not
yeah.
like his promises,
Right.
but 50-point-something% of the population did.
Right. The 76 million people
Yeah,
that voted for
yeah,
him.
well, the other thing too is you talked about enrollments, and this is why the colleges are panicking too, because as American, U.S. citizen enrollment has declined, foreign enrollments have increased. And the colleges are also now more panicky. I mean, obviously, there are a zillion Arab students, Korean students, whatever. We found Chinese students over here, some of which were intelligence people at Harvard, that whole story that happened. But literally, there are a lot of people, especially in the wealthy foreign countries, who want to come to American universities, and Trump ruffling all that thing up is panicked a lot of colleges.
But that's a
because-
scary movie because
What do you mean,
one of the
movie?
reasons that we give so many scholarships to kids is that the foreigners pay full bore.
Yep.
Exactly.
At my oldest daughter's school, they actually had a surtax. So back then, the tuition and all was 35,000. The foreigners paid 45,
Oh,
and they
boy.
took that money and used it for scholarships for the other kids.
Yeah, but it shows you how screwed up the whole financing was in the beginning, to have to do that
Yeah.
to keep things low. That's what, there's something in the college, they're not seem to be being run as businesses, which they are as businesses.
They are.
They're not being run that way because, there's, I mean, we could just cite all the colleges in the what do you call it. But again, you go back to the whole thing. What we need now are tradespeople, and you take with the people in the men and women in the U.S. Army, the amount of training, the military, in the Navy, Air Force, whatever, the amount of training in taxpayer dollars that these soldiers get is amazing.
It is,
To,
yeah.
to operate these weapons and weapon systems, it's amazing what you get out of it. And more and more young people should be maybe going into that as one way out of this.
But I don't understand because when I went to school, I was always amazed. Holy Cross, all in, room and board, school, everything, was 6,200. My
Yeah, but-
parents,
yeah.
my mother was making 11,000. My father was making big bucks. He was making 18,000.
But
at
again,
General
but
Motors.
relatively speaking, 6,200 was a pretty significant figure of their salaries.
Yeah, but they had enough income to do it. I don't know how.
Well, they didn't.
I'm looking
I
at
was
you
just gonna
saying.
say, I just hit the go button the other day on tuition payments. So yeah, I mean, it's.
I remember coming home when
significant.
Emily got accepted to
Yeah.
Holy Cross, and I was all excited.
Yeah.
I looked at my darling bride and said, should I be excited we just committed
Yeah.
$250,000?
Exactly.
Again, though,
And-
that's
and I
it,
look at
yeah.
my daughter that's going for biomedical engineering, right? So
Oh,
if she
well,
wants
wonderful.
to be in the engineering field, she needs to go to college,
Yeah.
right? If you want to be a doctor, a
Yeah, yeah.
nurse, right? You need that college degree, but it goes back to you better make sure that's what you want because again, you can go to a trade school,
Yeah.
and make a very good living, right? And work hard.
Well,
at
we were
doing it.
hiring kids to start in the lab, biotech operators, at 55, 60 grand. And you say, that's not a tremendous salary, but it's a good dang
Right.
salary.
No.
Right.
But more importantly, they didn't have debt.
Exactly.
But, part of it is,
That's the
again,
key.
you look at the whole thing, and when COVID hit, okay, the media, whatever, who are all college educated, who are elitist in a certain way, they didn't realize the truck drivers of America saved our rear ends. The truck drivers, they delivered the stuff, and if we hadn't had them, where would we have been with the isolation that we had? But again, you didn't hear, some people started to talk about it, but you don't have that, whatever in the society. Something has moved where there's no respect for that sort of work and endeavor
Well, but
and
Ed,
whatever.
My
Well,
mother,
yeah, but your mother's a
when-
different generation. We're
when she
talking
came
now.
here,
Right.
We're talking
she
now.
thought the greatest thing in the world was I was the first member of our family to go to college.
I understand, but things have evolved beyond that. That's the
The
point.
blue collar worker, right? That's what you're saying, like
Well, I just,
But
and I don't
not-
even like to use that term because they're loaded with, whatever, you're white collar or blue collar.
Yeah.
There's certain, and I'm not implying to us, what you're just saying, there's a certain whole thing in the society where we neglect the people who make all of this possible.
Yeah,
The people
again,
who-
the truck driver.
And the
you know?
people who
Yeah.
work in the Amazon plant to get a silly thing to you in 8 hours instead of, well, I can't wait 2 days for this.
Right.
And, I mean, it's amazing.
Well,
but-
again, it's all the people that were getting our food ready.
Yeah.
Transporting
it,
on
everything.
a truck and then putting it on
Yeah,
our store
yeah.
shelves. Could you imagine if we, you walked in any one of the local grocery stores and there's no food? Like,
And
what
that-
would
and
we
there
do?
you go.
We would implode.
We
How
don't
about
have
te-
enough
yeah.
people working at that level.
Right.
Yeah, but how about teaching a class to a kid in school?
Yeah.
Bring them in the grocery store. Where does this come from? What are they asking me a stupid question like that for?
Right.
Someone just put it on the show. You got to teach people. It goes all the way
Yeah,
back to
hierarchy.
this,
Yep.
or lower hierarchy, whatever it is.
Right.
It goes all the way back to this, and because kids just go, "Oh, I got a phone. I've got this. I've got this." I mean, there's
I
this.
can DoorDash anything I want right to my house.
Oh,
My
yeah.
cup of coffee, right?
Yeah,
My
but
Dunkin'
I
Donuts.
think finally
Imagine.
people are starting to realize that certain positions, plumbers, electricians, they make good money.
They make
But they're
real
also-
good money.
And
Think
their
about
life balance
Right.
is, I mean,
What does Trump say? We can't build ships in the United States anymore.
Right.
He's going to outsource them to like Korea and whatever because we don't have the expertise
well, that's-
anymore. How did that
I'm
happen?
married to my phone
How did that happen?
for decades,
Yep.
working in the instrument business.
Mm-hmm.
Late nights, calls from China, calls from India.
Yep.
Right.
I kind of envy the people who, at 5 o'clock, they punch out and they go play with their family.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Although if you've met any kind of tradesman, they're getting calls. I just dealt with my plumber today, fuel guy. I mean, they get, and it's like, it's crazy things like my furnace won't run.
My furnace
well,
won't run,
could you,
Well,
little
it's
troubleshoot it before
Christmas
I come?
Eve, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and by the
Yeah.
way,
I
you know,
have
it's
no heat.
$200 for me to come and flip
Right.
a switch and go, do you know the red switch in the kitchen?
The air
Right.
conditioner in my bedroom isn't working.
Yeah.
It's now 90 degrees in my bedroom.
Right.
Tell me how unimportant the technician is
Exactly.
that you're
Yeah.
calling.
Yep.
No, that's the thing.
There's no doubt about
But
it.
there's a whole thing in there. But we covered a lot of ground tonight.
We did. Thank you for coming in. And to our 6 loyal viewers, thanks for watching. May tomorrow be a better day than today. God bless. Good night. And
Have a safe summer, everyone.
have a safe summer.
Far too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just